Antony Blinken, once again, like I said, going back to the news, Antony Blinken is headed to Israel again to get Israel to sign on to their own proposal. It's weird.
It is Antony Blinken's eighth trip to the region since the war between Israel and Hamas began last October. During the three-day visit, which begins in Egypt, he'll urge Arab leaders to pressure Hamas into accepting the draft peace deal unveiled at the end of last month by President Biden. Meanwhile, Benny Gantz, one of the most senior members of the Israeli war cabinet, which was set up after the Hamas attack last October, has resigned from the group. He had threatened to
Yeah, there's also information from the released hostages, the rescued hostages. It's like pretty much the same stuff that you heard from them before, which is obviously our greatest fear was Israeli planes. Hara spoke with former Israeli hostage Louis Har, who was rescued from Gaza by Israel's army in February. I can tell you that being there, it is hell. This is a hostage that was rescued in February. Rescued hostage learned Arabic, Russian, and Hamas captivity. Mother reveals. For the most part, hostages have been saying the same thing, that they're like, I mean, maybe some of them will say something new this time around, who knows, but like for the most part the testimony has been fairly consistent of those who have been released, which is that they were being defended against Israel's own weapons because that was their only point of leverage.
Stand down unless he felt there was a post-war plan for Gaza with a deadline set for yesterday. He told reporters he wasn't satisfied, and this is the moment he confirmed he was standing down.
Unfortunately, Netanyahu is preventing us from approaching true victory, which is the justification for the painful ongoing price. And this is why we quit.
I heard you got triggered by a comment. Did I? I don't even know what you're talking about, brother. Hopefully you can be a little bit more revealing about what you mean.
The national unity government today with a heavy heart, yet we feel that it is the right decision. We are now in the midst of a campaign that will impact the fate of Israel generations ahead. In order to guarantee...
I saw some sort of post that said you got mad at Hasan or something. I'm confused. I got mad at one of my closest friends and my podcast co-host because of a post that you saw on Reddit. I think you should reconsider and try to recognize context, nuance, how people operate. They're talking about Saturday stream when Hasan asked if you were mad at him. It's the TikTok fell off clip chimp you knew was coming. Yeah, I think so.
True victory this coming fall, when it will be the 1 year anniversary of this disaster. We should go for elections and reach a new government. I call on to Netanyahu, set a date for elections.
Well, let's go live to Jerusalem now and join our correspondent there, John Donison. Good morning, John. So what's the reaction been to this so far?
Well, look, I think this is a significant moment, but it's not going to bring the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu down because his coalition still maintains its majority in the parliament. But you have to remember that Mr. Gantz joined the government and the war cabinet in the wake of the October the 7th attacks as an act of unity. And what this shows now is that there is no unity on how the war is being conducted in Gaza, and in particular, as you said in your introduction, in terms of a post-war plan. It also removes a relatively moderate figure, and Mr. Gantz is a man with vast military experience from the cabinet, and someone I think who was particularly well respected by the Americans. And I think what people think could happen here is it will see the government shift to the right. Those more extremist elements within the Israeli government could have more say. In particular, Itamar Ben-Gvir, the security minister, he has already said that he should replace Mr. Gantz in the war cabinet, and he is someone who completely rejects the idea of any sort of ceasefire deal with Hamas.
So what does this mean for President Biden's plan that was presented at the end of last month? Antony Blinken is in the region again, and his hope is to try and persuade Hamas to come on board. But now Israel, what Israel thinks about that plan is changing, presumably.
Yes, I mean, Mr. Blinken is going to be trying to put pressure, I think, on both sides. He's due in Cairo and then in Israel a little later.
No clip of Hasan raising 100K, but 5-second clip of a 2-day-old stream. The rage bait is #1 of some subreddit is crazy. It's not crazy. It's expected. It's a cancerous, toxic subreddit. LSF is what we're talking about. Yeah. And there were, I mean, listen, you just don't pay attention to it. Move on. Who gives a
But he's got a tough job, and those ceasefire talks don't really seem to be getting anywhere at the moment.
Oh, Time Without OO says, chat, all the resignation does is one, place Gantz in the opposition, where he'll actively join the fight to bring the coalition down, and two, likely bring Ben-Gvir and Smotrich into the war cabinet. This means the far right will have full direct control on war policy. However, in about 2 hours, the Knesset will hold a consequential vote to do with the Haredi conscription, which, if it fails, may potentially bring down the government in a matter of weeks. Shit could go either way. I'm here for the drama. Things are so tense, and it's not reported in international media. Yeah, the Haredi coalition has actively made a big stink about not having Haredi serve in the IDF. One of the parties even actively calls for a ceasefire now, which is also unique, right? Oh, yeah. Breaking news: CNN UN Security Council approved the U.S. proposal for a permanent ceasefire and release of the hostages in Gaza. Yeah, this was an American-backed plan, so I don't know if it's the exact one that UN Security Council voted 14-1 to back U.S. proposed Israel-Gaza ceasefire plan. We'll get back to this in a little bit, but yeah, the UN Security Council adopted a U.S. proposed resolution endorsing a ceasefire plan aimed at ending Israel's war in Gaza, the first time in 8 months of deadly conflict. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh says Israel's attempting to block ceasefire efforts as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken embarks on a trip to the Middle East. The Palestinian group accused Israel of committing a complex war crime with its attacks on the Nusayrat refugee camp that killed 274 Palestinians, including at least 64 children. Hospitals crippled by months of Israeli attacks and a blockade appeal for international help as they struggle to treat increasing number of patients. World Food Program pauses delivery of Gaza aid through the U.S.-built pier over safety concerns after Israel's deadly raid. At least 37,124 people have been killed and 84,712 injured in Israel's war on Gaza since October 7. The death toll in Israel from Hamas's attack stand at 1,139, with dozens of people still being held captive in Gaza. Wonderful. That was the price of their for hostage extraction. Is there evidence the U.S. cooperated with the Zayos on the deadly raid on al-Nusayrat camp? The United States has said that they've cooperated. We don't know the extent of their cooperation. I've seen some reporting with like U.S. military gear, personnel with like U.S. military gear and signifiers that they're a part of the U.S. military, like the reconnaissance group markers on some of the soldiers on the ground. They have said, the American government has said that there were no boots on the ground. There have not been any boots on the ground. The helicopter extraction did take place near the pier, near the U.S. pier, as in like the area that the United States has carved out for the pier. The Delta Force photo is from earlier. I believe 4 hostages were saved, but 3 were killed in the process, by the way. The only Hasan hater I know IRL is severely antisocial and addicted. They hardly go outside. They're incredibly unhealthy. I don't think this hatred of yours is the cause of these problems, obviously, but I think it gives more perspective. These people who are obsessed are deeply unwell. Most people don't know who you are, and I think that's really hard for them to comprehend. Yeah. More details will come in the upcoming days. I'm neurodivergent. Don't go outside yet. I don't hate you. No, I don't think that all neurodivergent people who are agoraphobic hate me. I'm saying that like most of the people who do have a deep passion for hating anyone, really. Okay, look, I don't want to talk about the haters that much, so I'm just going to move on from this and get back to news coverage. The last thing I will say is this. I don't like Ben Shapiro. I hate Ben Shapiro's policies. I am not this obsessed with Ben Shapiro's life, okay? I don't sit around and wait for Ben Shapiro to say something in a direction so that I can like clip it and make content out of it and like think about the parasocial nature of Ben Shapiro's like personal relationships are with other people. There are moments where it becomes like a major news story, like the deviation of Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro, and Candace Owens like leaving the Daily Wire, being fired by the Daily Wire. But beyond that, like it's not something that I'm like obsessed with to that degree. And he is completely the opposite of me, right? In his worldview, in the ways that he advocates, in the things that he advocates for. And for me, people will say like, oh, you talked about his wife before. And it's like, yeah, wet ass P word. Like that was a major meme. It was super fucking viral. Okay. Like there are moments where I do talk about shit like that. But again, I'm not the one who is like creating the drama actively and desperately trying to create drama out of his personal relationships or whatever. Yeah. Hasan has paid assassins or haters to discredit him. I mean, I don't think they're paid. That's the worst part. I think that they're just doing it for free for the most part. I don't comb through hours of Ben Shapiro content to pull out a 10-second long clip and rant about it for 2 hours. Exactly. And that's the point. Like, because it is unhealthy to be that obsessed. Not getting paid online is bad. I mean, to me, yes. If you're actively trying to make targeted content towards like some random Twitch streamer who doesn't know you exist at the behest of another Kick streamer who also doesn't know you exist, like, the are you doing? What kind of war are you fighting? Is this good for your mental health? Is this good for your sanity? Is this the best use of your time? I personally think it's not, you know? Anyway, very, very, very unhealthy. Let's continue.
Moment. And the danger is that if, for Mr. Netanyahu, that if he agrees to go ahead with this ceasefire deal, which he has suggested he would do, of course the Americans are calling it an Israeli plan, then the likes of Mr. Ben-Gvir, who I mentioned earlier, have said they will pull out of the government. And that would bring the government down, and it would mean fresh elections. And that is something that Mr. Netanyahu is desperately trying to avoid. So it's going to be fascinating to see what unfolds in the next few days. But I don't think people are holding their breath for any sort of ceasefire deal soon.
OK, John, for now, thank you very much indeed. John Donaldson there in Jerusalem for...
Anyway, Palestinians describe Israeli killings in the Gaza raid to free captives. We're going to talk about the Nusayrat raid now.
كانوا يطلعوا يقصفوا عليكم. طب ليش بتعيط؟ وين اهلك؟ الجيش عبد الله. الله اكبر. اشهد ان لا اله الا الله واشهد ان محمد رسول الله.
هذا الوحيد اللي امه بس نجدته بس. سيبتي درسيته كلهم راحوا. حوالي 14 ايش اقول لك اكثر من 14 سفينه تحت الانقاض. الشوارع مليانه جدا.
كان القصف واطلاق النار من كل فج وميل.
So the bombardment package that Israeli Air Force engages in is like indiscriminate bombing in a certain region in order to make sure that people can't leave or get into the region itself. That bombardment campaign ends up killing a shit ton of people. It is unconscionable. It is unimaginable cruelty. It is anything but a targeted strike, right? And the reason why they do it is because the cost of life for a Palestinian is very low. They just don't give a shit. So they encircle a position and they bomb indiscriminately. Yeah, the term I think is what is called deterrence belt. Yeah, what Israel calls this bombing campaign is a deterrence belt, right? Because you might be wondering, like, what, did they kill 200 Hamas militants? Like, are these guys just John Rambo? A bunch of John Rambos like coming in, doing a special targeted operation, getting into a shootout. Only one Israeli soldier gets killed in the process, and 200 Hamas militants that are armed get killed? No, of course not. That's not what happened at all. What happened is they bombed the shit out of that area while bringing in their convoy, and they kill 67 children in the process, 200 plus people, Palestinian people, and this is it. This is the outcome.
تعرفش انت ايش مصدر اطلاق النار؟ يعني عمري 32 سنه عمري ما تصورت انه ممكن اشوف لحظه زي هذه اللحظات.
And like people were shot, like civilians were shot. Civilians being treated at hospitals that are already like crippled, reduced to nothing almost. Those civilians reported being shot. They were being treated for gunshot wounds. It's not like these guys weren't just bombing. They were also firing indiscriminately at people.
خاصة على الشارع ما خلوا حدا في الشارع إلا غير أعدائهم.
قال بدكش تعترف هنحصرك على أولادك ونطخ لك أولادك. قلت له لا عندنا بعترف
He said, if you don't confess, we'll kill your children.
فيش دقيقة رأى غرفة سمعت صوت إطلاق نار. في اللحظة هذه كان طخ أولادي الاثنين. ابن استشهد عمره 12 سنة.
If you line up 15 people and kill them all, you for sure got the one Hamas guy. But the problem is that it's a war crime. Yeah, but they don't even do that. That's what I'm saying. They're just murking people indiscriminately. They're just going in. The witnesses say Israeli soldiers disguise themselves as aid workers. So that also is a war crime for obvious reasons, because now Palestinians can't even trust the aid workers. Palestinians are now going to be fearful of the aid, which is like another form of psychological warfare on top of everything else. How do IDF soldiers kill so many people without psychological issues? Oh no, they do. There's a process in American media as well as Israeli media called like shoot and cry, where there are so many. Why won't Arab nations liberate Palestine from the Jews? What the kind of question is that, bro? From the Jews? I don't even know how to address that. One, it's not about liberating Palestine from the Jews. Judaism is not the problem here. Zionism is the problem here. That's number one. Number two, all of the neighboring Arab regions, neighboring Arab nations, for the most part, are completely captured by American interests. Tim Pool's Hairline, thank you for the 10 community gift to subs. Arabs are not monolithic, and neither are Jewish people either. Ironic, because there are many Arab Jews. The plurality of Jews in Israel are Arab Jews. Jews from Arab background. Multiple reports have been removed from the Times of Israel as an increased suicide in the IOF since January. Yeah, no, they do. They kill themselves quite a bit, as a matter of fact, quite frequently. They develop deep psychological trauma from murking children and unarmed people, and then they go back to Israel proper, and then they kill themselves with regular frequency. Do you mind looking at my last question? It got automated, but I'm wondering about if the U.S. was actually involved in this. I wouldn't put it past us, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Bibi conducted this operation with American equipment, knowing how it would look for Biden to put pressure on him. I don't know. I mean, like I said, as it stands, there's a lot of footage that shows that American troops might have been more involved than they are claiming. The American government claims that they were not involved beyond intelligence. I know that they have Reaper drones all around that have been gathering intel on the Gaza Strip 24/7. As far as I understand, the drone surveillance technology was simply in aiding the hostage extraction campaign, as in like finding where the hostages are in the Gaza Strip. However, I mean, I'm sure the American government has given targets to Israel, as in places not to shoot in the past, and Israel has used those targets as target practice. America, even in the early stages, the American government was sharing intelligence with Israel, telling what areas had civilian populations and what areas Israel should avoid bombing, and Israel would routinely bomb those areas. They treated it as target practice. So the line defending the killing of children as future danger was literally defense of the Nuremberg trials. Yeah. If you refer to killing children as reducing the number of future terrorists, you are a Nazi. I hope you know that, especially if you're Jewish. Will you explain the tribunal what conceivable threat the security of the Wehrmacht a child constituted in your judgment? The children would grow up, and surely, being the children of parents who had been killed, they would constitute a danger no smaller than that of their parents. There's a Haaretz story about the idea of denying a military funeral to soldier after suicide. Wait, isn't this the guy? Eliran Mizrahi. Wait, this is the guy. Wait, he did actually. Yo, this is the guy. This guy was the one who was literally posting like IG posts and shit. So he did actually kill himself. So the Quds story was correct. He did. This guy literally posted TikToks and shit. Let me see if I can find it.
Eliran Mizrahi, an Israeli reserve soldier in the engineering corps, used to share footage of himself boasting about the destruction of Gaza.
Mizrahi family, we are on our way to another client pleased with our services, referring to the demolition of a Palestinian house.
Operated a D9 bulldozer, filming himself daily as he razed Palestinian houses and properties in Gaza for 7 months.
Damn, bro, that sucks. So sad. Oh well. Turns out it was weighing on his conscience a little bit.
Mizrahi also shared images of himself and other soldiers vandalizing Palestine.
World War II veterans at a suicide rate of 5 per 100K, and Iraq War veterans at a suicide rate of 27.5 per 100K. The more suicides correlate with how moral the war is. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a multitude of different factors, including like your reception, including your integration back into society. World War II veterans were in much larger numbers, obviously. There was a draft. Let's take a look at this Israeli soldier, and the Israeli soldier that took his life. In my defense, I said it was like 500 times that I was wrong like an hour after we covered it. Okay, it's fine. I think it's perfectly valid. I think it's perfectly valid for you to make the assumption that this might not be correct, especially if you're combing through the Israeli news and not seeing anything about him. Let's take a look at what some of the wonderful stuff that this guy, this IDF, this Israeli occupying force psycho was posting before killing himself.
All right, gentlemen, I want you to repeat after me, just how I do it. Ready? Another good time. All right, gentlemen, I want you to repeat after me, just how I do it. Ready?
November 7th, 2023. Wipe out the seed of Amalek. On October 7th, he wrote, erase, flatten, do not leave a trace. Now, more than ever, whoever plays, October 25th, whoever plays with fire shouldn't be surprised when he's being burnt good. And we haven't even started. Apparently, he shot himself to death with a handgun. On May 21st, I published and translated photos about Eliran Mizrahi, a reserve soldier in the engineering corps who was always posting about the war crimes he committed in Gaza. Gaza. Eliran Mizrahi, who fought in the Gaza Strip since October 7th, ended his life by shooting himself with a handgun last Friday, 2 days before he was supposed to return to fight in Rafah. Mizrahi, 40 years old, left behind a wife and 4 children. He was called up for reserve duty at the beginning of the war by Order 8 and worked as a D9 bulldozer driver destroying Palestinian homes. He entered the Gaza Strip and, according to the Hebrew media, was exposed to dozens of anti-tank missiles, survived resistance ambushes, small arms fire, and explosive devices and mines. After half a year of fighting, Eliran returned home. He was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, but despite this, he requested to continue serving in the reserves. Shortly after his release from the reserves, he received another Order 8, and he was supposed to report again today. Now his family demands that he be buried in a military funeral. His father said the army took him, and the army should take care of his burial. We will not hold a non-military funeral. He remained in Gaza even when he was at home and was preparing to go out today for reserve duty by Order 8. The end of a war criminal who participated in genocide. Guess what? According to Haaretz, the military is refusing to honor him with a military funeral because he killed himself. Elian, good morning. Ariel, Daniel, and Michal from the Mizrahi family, I love you. Doesn't that make him sane because he killed himself, though? I mean, in his final act, there was a moment of sanity, I think. I don't know if it's due to the fact that, like, he felt conflicted about all the war crimes that he was celebrating. So I kind of feel like it's not right to make fun of him. He actually did a good thing by killing himself and being one less person committing war crimes. True, in his final moment. In his final moment, he had a decent, he put out a decent act. But, you know, at least he went out with a bang. I doubt he did it because he realized what he's been doing. Yeah, I don't know. These stories are generally tough to confirm unless you find the social media like BM did. In April, independent Israeli media reported that soldier suicides rose dramatically since the war and that they've received countless examples. Most stories don't get covered in detail for obvious journalistic ethics reasons. Also, the guy who offed himself after he came back to Israel, not in Gaza. Yeah, no, his family is saying that his mind was still in Gaza. And also on top of that, he was still going to go back to Gaza. He was slated to redeploy in Gaza. And that's why he should get a military funeral. I feel like being a Zionist who takes joy in this stuff breaks people's brains in a very catastrophic way. An example being this. My brain has been rotted so much by the Hamas fandom that after the Celtics game last night, someone was waving a huge green flag with a white script writing on the court. And my first thought was, oh my God, they're waving a Hamas flag. Yeah. If he actually had a moment of sanity, he would have joined the many veterans in breaking the silence, for the record. That's what he would do, and spent every waking moment of his life, instead of killing himself, spent every waking moment of his life doing what is right to correct for his many war crimes that he engaged in. One of the central tenets of fascism is the hero narrative. He betrayed that, so now they will not accept him. There's many more like him out there right now. Ticking time bomb. Yeah, breaking the silence is mostly IDF soldiers that interacted in person with civilians that were brutalized or killed. That's not what happens most of the time in Gaza. That's what. No, there's the breaking the silence was literally created by a bunch of veterans who participated in the sieges in Gaza and were like, holy, we are literal psychopaths. Yeah, I imagine it's not on my end. And anyway, we're back. Let's continue.
الفلسطينية عليها النمرة الفلسطينية نزلوا كأنهم يعني يجيبوا مساعدات فلقوا المساعدات طبعا جنود قوات خاصة بين منطقة فيها النازحين.
Yeah, bro, there are plenty of breaking the silence vets from Gaza. What the the org, I know, that's what I said. The org was originally founded by Hebron people during the second Intifada, but they've documented every war in Gaza since then. Like they told about the phosphorus gas, random shooting of civilians, destruction of homes, mosques, schools for no reason. Yeah, no, I don't know who you're talking to, but I admitted that. Did my stream cut out while I was talking about it or something? That's literally what I said. Yeah, breaking the silence is veterans that are like a shit ton of veterans in breaking the silence right now. Some of the main people, including I think Benzion Sanders, like he is a Gaza guy. Like he went into Gaza. Others love for their lives once again.
قلنا لكم المرة المليون بنوجه رسالة للمجتمع الدولي، ما بدناش مساعدات، بدنا توقفوا الحرب. احنا بدنا نعرف، احنا مش عارفين وين نروح، بنقلوا فينا شمال ويمين، يمين وشمال، روح على الجنوب، تعال على الوسطى، روح على الدير، اطلع خان يونس، ايش فيه؟ لوقتيش الدمار هذا بيصير؟ لوقتيش؟ 9 شهور واحنا بنعاني.